Well, welcome everyone to our Braintrust series at PeaceRise. My name is Jeremy Fritzhand. I'm a co-organizer of PeaceRise and the Innovation Challenge. PeaceRise is a vibrant community of peace partners dedicated to driving innovation for global peace. This community and Innovation Challenge is an initiative of Alloy Growth Lab, a top 10 business incubator based in Cincinnati, Ohio. These sessions are meant to connect and inspire participants of the Innovation Challenge and share knowledge from subject matter experts in their respective fields. The format of the session will be a brief introduction followed by a presentation and then opening up to Q&A. Feel free to drop your questions in the chat and we will announce them at the end of the presentation. Today, it's my pleasure to introduce a trailblazer in the technology and entrepreneurship space, Nomiki Petrolla. Nomiki is the founder behind PDS Lab, a program designed to democratize the software development process for non-technical founders and students. Recognizing the significant barriers non-technical founders face, she harnessed her 15 years of experience to create PDS Lab. This innovative platform is aimed at empowering those without a technical background with the tools, training, and documentation necessary to bring their software ideas to life, effectively bridging the gap between concept and creation. Through its programs, PDS Lab offers unparalleled transparency in the product development process, providing hands-on training and resources that allow founders to rapidly validate, refine, and test their products with customers without the hefty price tag traditionally associated with software development. Nomiki's PDS Lab is a beacon for non-technical founders and students, offering them a unique blend of education and practical experience. Whether through the 4-week intensive program, which includes one-on-one coaching and dedicated development team, or the self-paced Idea to Product course, PDS Lab is designed to equip the next generation of entrepreneurs with the skills they need to succeed in the tech world. Please join me in welcoming a leader and innovator, someone who's not just shaping the future of software development, but also making it accessible to everyone. Nomiki Petrolla.
Hi.
Welcome.
Oh my gosh. Okay, I'm extremely excited to be here. Let me share my screen and make sure I do this properly. Advanced video, portion of screen. And then I think I have to select part of this or not. Hold on, that didn't work. This isn't going as smoothly as I was hoping. One second.
No
Okay,
worries.
I think that worked. Did that work?
Perfect. Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Jeremy, thank you. That was an extremely kind introduction. I really appreciate it. I'm really excited to be here. So I will give you a brief overview, but I'm talking about how to solve problems with a human mindset, or really like customer feedback, which is the perfect way to start this, because everything that I stand on has to do with validating your product, which a lot of people don't know how to do. So just a brief intro to me. This is my beautiful family. I have 3 girls and a boy and a husband. So I'm a mom of 4, and really they're the genesis of why I even went out on my own and decided to be a multi-entrepreneur. They have changed everything in the way that I think and how I act and how I build my life and our products, and literally everything. Our foundation of building a family has to do with them. So thank you to my kids. I'm also the founder of PDS Lab, as Jeremy mentioned, and the entire foundation of that product offering and what the company does is to turn ideas into software for early stage startups. So I've been doing that for the past 15 years of my career, as a designer first, and I've kind of went all the way through my whole career in early stage startups, like from the idea stage, like really people that have no team, they have maybe 10K in cash and they want to figure something out, all the way to small companies that have been acquired for double digits, even close to triple. So it's been a journey building products from design all the way up into product management. My career has been in e-com, fintech, financial services, AI, feminine technology, and it just runs the gamut. And what I learned when I started to build out, all these products, like dozens up to hundreds of features and product offerings, is that I follow the same protocol for every single one. And I think that because that started because I realized I'm a designer, we have to think different. Designers have this ability in general to visualize problems in a way that a standard person would not. And that's part of their job, right? For thinking about experiences, which is all based on, customer feedback and how a user goes to use your product offering. And while I built all of this, I also am now a community leader. When I created the PDS Lab, it was all about building product for early stage companies. And a lot of the founders told me, like, where do your founders go? And they were like, we want a place to have people to talk to and build with and commiserate with when we're struggling and all of the things. And I'm like, okay, well, the data tells me to build this community. So I built it. We launched a couple weeks ago. We have about 100 founders in there, all different types of products. And yeah, so that's a little bit about me. And what we're going to be talking about today is, why is it so important to be building from a customer mindset? And the first thing I want to call out, and I tell everyone this, is 90% of businesses fail, but 42% of them fail because they didn't find the market need. They didn't find product market fit. And where does that come from? That actually comes from founders and builders not validating any of their ideas, and they're building off assumptions. So they think the problem I have is the problem that my customers have. I know the problem so well because I feel that deeply, but I don't go out and find feedback, both qualitative and quantitative data, to determine, is the pain that I'm having something that I can solve for and that others will need? But not just that, will they pay for it? So a lot of times when we are building products in companies that I've worked with, they will say, well, I have this idea, I want to go build it. I've literally built products for founders that did not do this step, which is why it's now like literally the first part of the framework of everything that I teach, because you end up spending so much time and money building things that are not needed. Now, if we're talking about B2B and B2C products, the type of data you receive and like go out and validate with are completely different. So if you're building a SaaS platform for like enterprise companies, you only need like 2 or 3 customers that are paying, a good amount of money for you to get feedback to say like, okay, that's validation enough that I can go build out this feature that's going to support them and they're going to use it. But you still have to think about that MVP level and how to execute appropriately. And then B2C, you need hundreds of people. You need to be interviewing them one-on-one. You need to be collecting data that you can determine, patterns on not just behavior, but their demographics to see like, okay, who am I going after? And then how do they actually feel through it? And the main thing here is that it all comes down to building from a human mindset. Just as Jeremy has been saying, like you have to consider the customer first. So in my program, everything that I offer, it starts with don't build anything. Go out, talk to people. Like for my own company, I talked to people for months. I literally weekly, my calendar was a hot mess, and I just called founders and said, like, what are you doing? How are you going out to build products? I need to understand, I'm a technical person. I'm not a developer, but I have skills in how to, work with developers and determine like, how should you build, learning alternative ways of building, what you should consider with your specific product, because no one journey is the same. And we need to be thinking about our customer first before we make any decisions. And after about 10 or so interviews, I started to find a pattern. And just a little story on like my business and why I built this sort of incubator style platform is that when I'm a woman and we receive 2% of funding, which is nothing. And I kept hearing about, I have some investor friends, and I kept hearing like, well, they're not really getting it for these reasons. And my whole thesis was actually completely different. They're not getting it from bias, access, all those things, which are completely true. But the main thing that I, as a product builder, that I believed was true is that women do not know how to build product in general. And that then is the genesis of, okay, they don't have access to the same resources, the networks, the ability for me to go out and travel to, Silicon Valley. I have 4 kids. I literally cannot do these things that my male counterparts can. Females represent, I think, roughly 30% now of the technology industry in general. So we're behind. We also haven't been working the same amount of time. So we are playing catch up in general. And I think this whole building of, the technical aspect, we're starting to inch towards, but it's still it's still not helping us propel faster and getting funding. So my thesis was they don't know how to build product and I need to prove it before I build this company. And what I did was I ate my own dog food. I built this whole program and I was like, before I even try to sell it, I need to use my own program, which I do for other companies. I gathered data from 75 female founders and I asked them all of these questions. I have a database full of paragraphs from women answering questions around how long did it take you to build? Are you bootstrapped? Did you have access to support? The 60% took them 6 to 18 months to build a product, which in my opinion should take less than 3 months. People don't know how to think of, oh, I have this big idea and now I have to go build it. And they're asking for millions of dollars for pre-seed, but they don't know how to go out and actually execute. And they don't need to be thinking that big. That's not going to solve a problem. You need to actually trim the fat way down to one thing. So maybe your solution or your idea has 10 different features that you can be building from. And you need to think about what is the one thing though? What is the one thing that is the most impactful that is going to help your customers? Maybe it's two, but like the smallest amount that's going to have highest impact on your customer that you can go out and sell today without spending gobs of money. And I believe based on my feedback is that women lack that knowledge. We don't know how, we don't have the access to the networks to be able to find out how to even go about that process. So it all comes down to the customer and to validate your ideas before you go build. And there's so many common challenges that go in with that. And the main thing I always say is like, they don't know, non-technical founders don't know what they don't know. And that's not against them. They're brilliant, right? They all obviously have this visionary aspect about their ability to see the future or like these great ideas. They can see problems in front of them, but they don't know what they don't know if they have not been introduced to the technical landscape. And that's the simple basics that they can learn, but it takes time to get over that hurdle. So they don't know how development teams work. They don't know, like down to the basics, the difference between a front end and a back end developer. The term developer as an example to them means, oh, I have one person that will go build everything. Well, your chances of finding a full stack developer for, a couple points of equity are very slim, right? Because they have so many skills. They cost like $250K at least to go build out your tools, and to gain access to them with they're already a hot commodity is so difficult to find. And that basic knowledge of understanding the landscape is just not accessible to them. They also don't know alternatives to building. These are the three things that there's obviously dozens, but these are the top three things that I've identified. They don't know alternatives to building. So in my framework, which I'll cover in a little bit, is showing them like brain dump everything that you have. Okay. Show me 100 ideas that you have to build for your solution. Now let's go through each one of them. And I'm going to give you like 3 ways to build. And usually it's you build from scratch and that's custom. You build out of the box, you use a third party. You literally just integrate. Think of like Zapier as an automation, a very simple example. Or you do a hybrid and you use an open source API of someone third-party tool, and then you kind of configure it into your software. There are tons of ways to build, but I try to break it down to those 3 methods to teach of not everything that you want to do. Like you don't need to build a custom chatbot. Go on to, there's all these different platforms that have AI generated chatbots that will literally read your website and you can pay them $10 a month. And now you don't have to do anything. Don't pay a developer to go build one from scratch when you don't even know if that chatbot, again, as an example, is going to have high impact for your customers. Is that a need? Don't spend money, don't spend time on things that you don't know are relevant to your customers, pain points, and if that's actually going to solve them and help them get propelled forward for their product builds. And the last one here is like, again, this could be like a list of 100 things. They're unclear how to test without spending money. So not everything requires money to build, okay? There are so many free tools out there that are at your disposal, but the lack of knowledge on how to use them, how to string them together, how to come up with a solution. It's really about being gritty and figuring out how can I string together a bunch of things that can build this one thing without maybe spending $100 or less a month, that can solve a problem that I can go out, find 10 people to test it on, see if they'll pay me $10 to solve this problem or whatever it is, and determine if it's worth me now taking the next step to say, okay, this worked. I'm going to now go sell this Excel sheet And then I'm going to put this Excel sheet. I'm actually going to build a custom framework inside my platform. After you've proven that this basic MVP can actually be sold and used. And a lot of times founders think, I'm going to go get funding. I need $3 million to go build this because I need these team members to do it. And I need X amount of time with these resources. This is the tool I want to use or agency I want to use. When there are so many other ways that you can be scrappy to really test. And you also, a lot of these founders have the skills, right? They're really smart. Founders are well-versed. I like to call us elite generalists. We might not be an expert, maybe an expert in one or two things, but really we're very good at dozens of things. And we are capable of solving problems by being resourceful. We just need to understand what those options are to go ahead. I see some heads nodding, so I'm guessing that you all have felt this pain point with other founders before. So PDS Lab is built from all of this. And our mission is really to support non-technical founders bring their software ideas to life. I've been working with non-technical founders the majority of my career, and all of these problems, in the past 10, 15 years of building have been the same. And when I got all this data and I determined, okay, how can I serve them at the masses? I love being a consultant. I love solving problems like really deeply and like seeing a company come to life. And I've had the really awesome opportunity to even be a part of few that have sold based on building from scratch. And everything that I've done, I'm like, I really love my work. And I'm like, how do I help more people? How do I like have a bigger impact? And I want to help more non-technical founders at the masses because they don't have access. And how do I give them that place to go to allow them to know that they can do these things because they are capable? And as always, I always say customers first, and everything that we've built from scratch is for customers first. So like my whole process, I break it down to like 4 components. So everything I teach, there's within these 4 components, there's like 10 different things in each one of them that I literally go through with our founders. And I always start with discovery and ideation. That is part of the joy and fun of being a founder is you get to come up with all these crazy ideas day and night. And then you get to see like, how does that come together at large does it actually serve my mission? You'd be surprised that sometimes founders will come up with these ideas and then they forget what their mission is and they just want to build it to build, but it doesn't actually serve the purpose. So it's like, should you be doing that? And most of the time when I'm working with founders, it's not even giving them it's not even giving them the right, say, do this, do that. It's actually questioning them, asking tons of questions. Ask why. I say why all the time. Like, why are you choosing to do that? Does it serve your purpose? Why did you come up with that idea? How many customers told you in some kind of format that was a pain point that you even came up with this idea? And then we dive deeper. My goal is not to make their decisions, but help them make more informed and better decisions that still align with, the 80% data and 20% intuition rule that I like to follow. Because yes, I'm heavily data driven, but not everything we do as builders is data. There's always that sense of, here's my gut instinct. This is my intuition. This is also just what I love to do. Like, you want to enjoy what you're building. Prior to starting PDS Lab, I created 2 other businesses. And I was good at them. I was very good at them, but I hated it. I was like, why am I doing this? And literally my husband would be like, are you enjoying your life right now? I'm like, no, I actually hate this. This is not fun. I just happen to know how to do it very well because I've solved this so many times. And I'm like, but it doesn't serve me and my joy. And I'm dreading it. I work every night and I'm like, I dread doing this. And if I'm going to work, I want to really enjoy what I'm doing. So I try to recall that for founders to remind them that you have to enjoy what you're building. Don't just come up with ideas because you think they're great. Come up with them because you feel, a need to do it and you enjoy it. And then, but again, we're in section 2 now. We haven't built anything yet. So my whole program is don't build anything, do all of the diligence. And the second format, after you come up with all of that, we'll start to actually formulate it into a plan for customers to say, Well, how would they feel about going through that? So we'll do user journey maps and I'll have them block out everything from the entry point to their software idea all the way to, okay, well, how will they exit it? And what are the pain points in that process? Because majority of time when non-technical founders are building, they're only thinking about the positive cases. They forget that 50%, if not more, of your software are actually negative edge cases. And it's how do I solve for those pain points too? So it's still delightful. You're still thinking about them, and you're able to, you want them to have a positive experience regardless. A founder that I look up to, he once said that no matter what you're building, you have to make sure that they cannot fail in your software. They simply cannot. Do not let them fail. And what he meant by that was literally being accessible at all times. And we have to do the unscalable to get to that point where you can scale without yourself, but you have to be able to be available to see what is happening for your customers. And sometimes heat mapping just doesn't do that because that's after the fact. You want to be proactive and not reactive when you're building. So if you can be accessible at the early stages, then you should do that. And all of that then goes into how am I building the user experience to a point where I'm providing delight to my customers. And from there, we then start to say, okay, you had this basic level of here are all the things that I want them to do. This is how I go about it. Now let's take those blocks and think about, all right, what features are actually going to make that happen? So we start thinking about the technical aspect of, okay, in order for you to build section A to go to section B, what are the technology aspects that go under there? And what do we need to start thinking about in terms of complexity and how simple it should be? And what do you need to build this? A lot of times you'll hear founders say, I need to build this with AI. This is a very common problem that I'm experiencing right now with my founders. They're like, well, I have to build with an AI tool. Everything has to be done with AI, of course, because 2023 was the buzzword. OpenAI made everyone think like, if I'm not building with AI, am I building anything at all? And the answer is yes, you are. And not everything has to be solved with AI. This is just an example. This, can be used in any other method, but for AI, for example, when we're prioritizing, the question is, does it make it better? Does the AI make your experience better? Or do you literally need AI to function? I have people building things with social media trends, and the only way to come up with a trend is by tons of data. And you're not going to synthesize that yourself. You likely need some kind of basic model to synthesize it for you to come up with something, because you need millions of data points to find out what the trend actually is. And the alternative there is, well, someone else is actually building an API for you that does that. So don't build your own AI tool. See if you can get like a 30, 60-day trial of their tool to see if you can use it before you invest money in it. So all these alternatives and figuring out how do I prioritize top to bottom, the highest impact with the lowest effort first that will be on my customers, and then start to think about, okay, maybe these 20 features that go into this experience, I only need to build like 5. And here are the other ways that I can get to the development part faster without building those things. So that plug and play example for integrations. From there, I've now gotten my founders to think, okay, now I understand all the things that go into building that experience. How do we write requirements? What are the details, the granular aspects of building those? And the reason why I add requirement scoping and tech stack is because what I have found is that oftentimes when founders go to a dev agency, majority of the time they'll tell them, I want to build this, and they have like 10 bullet points, and these are the things that I want. They'll go to that agency and they'll say, this is what I wanted to build, and they'll get a scoping document that's like 200 grand and like 6 to 12 months of build time, and then they're like, oh crap, I need to go get funding. That's not the case. So I want to help eliminate that fear of, oh, I have this idea, all these agencies are telling me I need to build this. And it's simply because you don't know what you don't know. So back to that, I don't know how to build this tech. Well, the whole program teaches you. Now let's go through this process in a very granular detail so that you understand without having to go to technical co-founder yet, which I do believe you need, but not right now. Figure out, get as much knowledge and yourself and to learn how your technology can be built with all these different options. Let's get them scoped out to the detail. Okay, this costs 5 grand. and this feature costs $5,000 to make, or and this will take me like 2 sprints of effort. And what is the impact on that? So then you can start to see numbers based on the features that you want and a very granular detail, and determine what should I go then build. So again, you're trimming the fat. So you get to that point, then you're starting to think, once you see a dollar amount assigned to your ideas, which sometimes it takes founders to that end product, the end product progress here, to see, oh, that's going to cost me that much money. Maybe I don't need it. I just put it in there because I wanted it. But now I understand why I probably don't need that to test. So the goal here is at the end to come up with everything, get it scoped out so that you are able to make better decisions for yourself and to prioritize your functionality that serve your customer. It always comes back to, does that serve your customer? And if it doesn't, drop it, just wait. And so some of the examples that that we're building right now, that I use the social media trend and campaign analysis. I have another company that's doing software and hardware integration, and they need to use AI for their memory-driven, solution. I have a mobile app that's a basic product that's for moms that just supports them for postpartum care. SaaS platform that connects people, sort of like the LinkedIn for, the LinkedIn version for the investor community. And then an e-commerce and content-driven platform. So those are 5 examples that are going through it right now. And one just finished and actually launched. They went through the whole program. They went through the program 4 weeks. They launched the thing in 14 weeks, and they already have reached a 4.6 conversion rate. So this is my first case study to show start all the way to launch and then 4 weeks of success, which I'm honestly, I feel like this is a crazy number. And so it's kind of nuts because 2.5 is the industry standard. So the fact that this happened is just wild and very exciting. And it just proves the point. So prior to this founder actually doing the program, they spent multiple 6 figures in cash and reserve cash to build their product that was a completely free solution. And they did not follow a process. And what they did was they said, hey, I want to build this, gave them that list of bullets saying like, yeah, these are it. This is the general cost. I think the original scoping was around like 180 or something like that. They had to build an entire back end, infrastructure, all these different things. And they said, okay, I'm going to go build it. Well, what happened was because they didn't follow process and they didn't know all of these different, how development and changes go into the process, throughout every sprint, they'd be like, oh, I want to change this. I want to change that. I want to change this. And what that does is, without having a very clear direction on what you want to build, every time you make a change, that changes the infrastructure and the architecture of your platform. That then is a direct cost implication to your build. And I'm not going to tell you how much they spent. So after that happened, I was like, here, we should follow this process. So we followed the process. I can't tell you the client because I'm telling you numbers. But they spent roughly $36,000 from start to finish. And they've already paid for itself with their conversion. So this is my latest and customer success story, which I'm super proud of, obviously. And that's it. So I'm happy to answer any questions. And thank you for letting me present today. It's been a joy.
Thanks so much, Nomiki, about sharing your process and the work at PDS. So we'll start with the Q&A. Guests can use the reaction button at the bottom of your screen to raise your hand. We do have a couple questions in the chat, so let me open those up from...
I'll have you read them because I don't think I could. Oh, I see the chat.
I can read this one if you'd like, Jeremy.
Yeah, go ahead. Thank you.
So I think this is from Nikhil. Nikhil Namiki was wondering, is there a comprehensive guide and framework and or resource that helps provide a guide or mapping of a lot of the possible use cases and user experiences from like a pre-build standpoint? Or maybe Nikhil, if I'm referencing, right?
Yeah, you got it.
Right. Like, what's that framework look like?
So my framework is a bunch of mini frameworks that compound on one another. So in that 4 blocks that I mentioned, that is the big picture startup framework. And each one of them has mini frameworks. and they're all in relational databases that compound. So by the beginning, the way that I use it is that I have people start at the basic level, adding all their company stuff, and like all their ideas, like the idea factory. And then you can turn them into other types of elements that are strung together through all these databases. So at the end, they have literally a database of all their features with like 15 different labels associated to each feature that are strung together through product requirements. And that ties directly to the development scope, which is another framework that ties to my framework. So everything that I built is literally this strung together like process that works in stream. If that answers your question.
Gotcha. Thank you, Nomiki.
Nomiki, a question on my own end, right? When dealing with non-technical founders, terminology tends to be a very huge challenge, right? I'm sure
Yes.
probably everyone in here can probably share to that sentiment. When it comes to educating them on language, right, and that language barrier, how do you handle that, right? Do you get, and is there a framework that you prefer to use in that process?
So we have like 3 to 4 meetings a week, and I literally sit with them and they'll have questions, I'll talk to them, and then I'll explain what things mean. They can take as many notes as they want, but my goal is to educate. So a lot of times founders, after a couple weeks, they'll start to pick up on, oh, you said that. Is that why that back end change now makes a difference in the front end? So as I like to reference my designer experience, because as a designer, when you build things in an interface, you have to know how they connect. So I always bring back, if you build a screen, it's tied to something and that's invisible. And anytime that you build something, you have to connect the dots. And that's different types of data labels, whether it's like a number, a string, a text thread, whatever it is. So I try to get them to think about building, and I use the interface example honestly like 9 out of 10 times, because visually it's the easiest thing for founders to represent and what they're actually building, and it connects the dots faster.
Absolutely. That's really interesting. Thank you. I guess maybe a follow-up to that, right, is the intimidation factor also, right, with all of that. So how does it, are there certain things that you found, little tricks or tips that you think are very critical to helping them feel more relaxed or confident in themselves when they have an idea, but then the world feels so vast, right,
Yeah.
that what do I do?
Okay, first of all, I am like the ultimate hype person. So I am all about empowering, and if I believe that you can do anything that you want to do. So I literally make them believe that they can do whatever they want. And I think that is the mentality shift of I can do anything, I can do this, and then empowering them with the actual tools to support that makes them feel enabled to do so. So and I also make things that might be custom one-on-one to say like, okay, I see that you're struggling with whatever this example is. I have done something for another client before. Let me come up with something that you can use that can, be referred to yourself, and your startup or your company that you can use for your team. So a lot of times it's building things to support them as individuals and not just at the mass, even though I'm supporting the masses. They need that like co-founder mentality almost. And
Right.
so I'm not your co-founder. I don't take your equity, but I am in terms of being your hype
I'm in
woman.
your back pocket, right? You can
Yeah,
say,
and like I'm accessible whenever you need me. If you're like shitting the bed over there, just send me a Slack message and I'll tell you that you're not. Like if you need me to ask someone a question, or if you need a referral to someone, if you need to meet someone to help you feel confident, or if I don't know the answer, I will find someone that does. So it's really about giving them the empowerment, like making them believe that you're here for a reason. You already got past that first hurdle to say, I can do this. Now to like continue to believe that you can do it. It's just really on us to make sure like, okay, you have the skills. You're obviously brilliant. Like now go do.
amazing.
Awesome. I've got a question here. You touched a little bit about the user feedback, but can you go in a little more detail about how you incorporate user feedback into the prototyping process?
Yeah, so in my process, I tell founders to collect both qualitative and quantitative. And from when I say that qualitative is really one-on-one interview, so finding people that are in your audience that you already know. So we cover ICP and persona in the program as well. Typically when you have an idea, you generally know who that is already, but getting deeper information by going on LinkedIn or Instagram or TikTok and finding, okay, these are people that are probably struggling with this. How do I get more information, and ask them for 10, 20, 30 minutes to talk to them. Asking them, do not ask them about your solution. So if you haven't read the book before, The Mom Test by Rob Fitzpatrick, I highly recommend it. It is like a 2 to 3 hour audiobook read, super fast. I'm teaching at Miami University, and I tell all the students, you're not allowed to do anything until you read this book, because it will make a difference for everything that you do going forward. The idea of that book is that the idea of test, not TED. The idea of that book is that it teaches you how to ask questions around behaviors. So behavioral questions of, how do you feel about, maybe the problem that you're solving is getting on the bus and you're annoyed with how you're there 20 minutes early all the time and you don't want to wait, or you're not sure. How do you feel about that process of walking from your house to the bus, and behaviors? So you want to ask them about that, about their pain points. Do not ask them about the solution. Do not tell them about your idea. The goal is not to get them to say, yeah, I like your solution, because as soon as you put something in their head about what you're solving, they're just naturally going to say, oh yeah, that would solve the problem, but that means nothing. That doesn't mean that it actually does, and that doesn't mean that they'll pay for it. So in order for you to get qualitative data that you can actually use, it really has to be like shadowing type information, asking them tons of questions about, other solutions that they use, not necessarily tactics, but like, how do you manage your stress? What are the things that you currently do to manage your stress? And I would say I drink coffee, and then I go sit alone for 20 minutes. And then that might give you some ideas of, okay, now what's happening? After you get roughly 10 qualitative data interviews done, honestly, I say even after 5, you will find a pattern. So patterns will just naturally start to emerge. I like to say minimum 10 interviews. And with me, I did the 75 for quantitative to begin with. I probably talked to 50 founders, like meetings, like nonstop. And then I chat with them and ask them more questions. But you ask them about, their experiences first, and then the patterns will just naturally start to come afloat. You'll start to see buckets of what's going on with each one of them. And you can do the same thing with quantitative. Quantitative is best way to say is like a form. You can give them a bunch of questions, demographic data, asking them a more specifics, like what tools do you use to do X? Where do you live? Whatever your solution is. And that can be like 10 to 15 questions. Then from there, I have my students, they're doing this right now. I basically tell them, come up with the highlights. So you have these buckets of like 3, high, medium, low in terms of impact for your feedback. Now pull out the highlights that are very apparent, that align to what you're trying to solve, and use that and tie it into your user journey. So the user journeys, remember I say we have blocks that like point to all these different flows. You literally bring your quotes or whatever it is from your founder or from your interviews and put them on the blocks, so that you can start to visually represent the impact of what the feedback is associated to what you're building. That visual aspect helps people see it so much more clearly than if they just remembered, oh, this one person said this. It doesn't help if one person said that. It helps if 10 people said it. So I hope that answered your question.
Yeah, thank you. I think we have another question. Did we get to Nikhil's second question here? Typically, a prioritization grid can be built internally based on user insights and hypothesis of level of effort impact tied to each feature or benefit. But is there a user validation process at this stage helpful to eliminate founder or client bias?
When you say founder client bias, are you referring to like them wanting to build something that they shouldn't be building?
Correct.
I let the data show them, and they get to choose whatever they want. It's their decision. But I lean heavily into data. I follow like an 80 to 20, 90 to 10 rule of 80 being data driven, letting them tell you what they need, and like 20% of your intuition and your gut, because that's actually what's going to make you stand apart from everyone else. Like you can build data, and they get to choose. If they choose, okay, well, that wasn't in the data, but I want to build it, that's fine. I'm not here to be your mom. I'm here to help you make informed decisions, and you get to make that decision. I don't know if that's what you wanted to hear, but that's how I do.
That's fair. Thank you. That's really helpful, because that's kind of a debate I'm having currently with.
Yeah, it's so we can't make people do things that we want to do. It's not our business. The best thing that we can do is guide, honestly, and give them as much information as possible to help them make a decision that they're comfortable with. And if they still want to do something, then they're adults on you. And they might be right. That's the scary thing.
Awesome. Gabriel, looks like maybe you have a question.
I didn't, but I can ask one. Something that had come to mind was a lot of PDS's sort of operations team focused on, you've identified a problem or what you think is a problem, and then you work your way towards a solution, mostly around the software and tech side of things. Have you worked with anybody that has done anything not entirely tech focused?
Yeah, so the 5 I listed in that example, in that same cohort, I had one that was not, and she was building a business. She actually was, I featured her in my newsletter. She built a business that was not technology. It's a service-based business that helps technology companies. And she used my framework to help her determine what her offer should be. So she ended up thinking, she was a consultant for direct-to-consumer brands and e-commerce specifically, and she's a fractional CMO, but she's very good at SEO and automations for email and SMS. And she was trying to figure out, well, should I actually build continuous consulting, or can I build something different that I can do what I enjoy, but also put on like that automation part for herself and still make more? She ended up going through the program. She did not use the last section. She used the first 3. She launched her business in 6 weeks from start to finish. Signed her client at over 5K MRR in that after the end of 6 weeks. And her business is service-based, but automation driven. So the framework does work. It's not my specialty, but now I have a case study that it works. I just don't talk about it a ton because my expertise is technology, but it does. So that's nice.
I think to your point, it represents that core of quality checking and asking the questions if you don't know what you don't know. And do people actually need something? Because if they actually do need it, you're pointing them in the direction to figure that out.
Yeah. So it's been fun to learn how it can work for non-tech companies too. But yeah, maybe that's where I expand in 12 months from now. Who knows?
And Nomiki, what's the best way for folks to connect with you?
You can email me. Here's my email address. You can contact me on LinkedIn. I'm there. Jeremy and I chat there every day. If you're a founder and you want to join my non-tech community, just shoot me a note. I'll send you the link. But I'm like everywhere. You can find me anywhere.
Awesome.
Just
Any
search
final?
Nomiki. Literally, you won't find another Nomiki Petrolla in the world. So
Awesome. Any final thoughts, feedback, questions before we wrap up here?
Maybe a fun last question, Nomiki. What's a question that you find yourself that you will always ask any of these individuals, founders that you talk to, that you think really tells a lot of how much they've actually thought about their idea that they're coming to you about? Is there a certain question you like to ask to see how aware are they of what they're really getting involved in?
So I've worked with founders, and this is like sad. It makes me sad sometimes, but I don't think a lot of founders understand the amount of work that goes into building. And sometimes when we go through the process and I explain, like, because I have a money back guarantee, and I'm like, hey, I know this works. If you come to all these things and all my meetings, and we go through and you do all the documentation and you don't find value, you can have your money back. Like, because I believe in it. And if you don't, and you're not getting out of it, then you can have your money back. When we go through those calls, they're shocked at how much work goes into this. So something that I've been exploring is like, okay, 4 weeks is very fast and it's very intensive. That's how I work. Like, I'm just like, go, go, go. But I realize that not everyone is like that. So I'm like, all right, we'll do either you can go through 4 weeks, you can do more flex, like a 12-week program. Same thing, same guarantee. And still, it's frightening for founders. Like, okay, I thought people just came up with an idea, they plugged a couple things in, they're making $1 million at the end of the year. And I think that moment of, am I cut out for this? Is this right for me? Do I want to explore this? Let me go talk to my partner to see if I want to do this. Because I've had a couple married couples come to me and they're like, should we do this? And I think that that's the first thing, is like getting them to realize, like, building a company, building a startup is very hard. And you're 9 times out of 10 going to fail. So like, do you want to do it? And that's one of the first things that it kind of weeds them out to say, like, all right, is this worth it for you or not? Because at the end of the day, it costs money, and is it worth it?
Is it worth to go from your 9 to 5 to 24/7?
Exactly. And it feels like 48 to 7. It feels like you're working like double time, and it's not everyone is cut out for that. I think, you know, the industry sometimes paints a picture that's not actually true. Especially if you were talking about e-commerce, I had a couple of e-coms and drop shipping. They think like, oh yeah, I can make that much and just drop ships. And they're like, actually, it's not that. That's not actually what happens. You have to then find your partners. You only make 25% margins. You have to worry about the logistics, all the shipping. You have to put all the things in the website. Like, there's so much that goes into it. And I think people paint this picture of, yeah, you can do it too, which you absolutely can, but are you cut out to do it?
Amazing.
Awesome. Well, thank you everyone who joined us for today's session. Thank you, Nomiki. And don't forget, the conversation doesn't end here. We invite you to tune into our next session this Thursday at 10 a.m. with the founders of Social Tech Lab. Stay tuned for more details and make sure to mark your calendars.
Thank you, everyone. This was a joy. Very appreciative of the time, Jeremy. Thank you. Thank you.